All right. This panel, Decentralized Governance, Past, Present, and Future. Thank you, Chris and Sky, for joining the Livepeer community. Just so you guys know, I think probably 80% of the people in the room, I'm going to estimate, are members of the Livepeer community. We have a lot of our node operators here. Other friends of Livepeer here. And yeah, to set this stage, Eric talked about kind of the overall space that Livepeer is in as a blockchain project. One of the most important, trends of what's happening because of crypto is this idea of decentralization. So, if we go back to the Bitcoin white paper and the vision for what that enabled was, distributed global networks. And when we decentralize technology or money, in the case of internet money and Bitcoin, we also decentralize power, and we decentralize human agency. We decentralize communities. And I think culturally, and why this movement continues to grow and why Bitcoin has been such a catalyst for so many is because of the excitement and just the potential that people feel when we can organize in a decentralized way. So DAO culture is a huge part of crypto. Livepeer is not technically a DAO, although we are a decentralized network. This is one of the things I want to get to with this conversation. We're really lucky to have two of the foremost DAOs in the crypto space with us on this panel. I think you've come to the DAO, Yearn and DXDAO came to the DAO, came to be DAOs from different places. I would say DXDAO probably emerged from the original Ethereum or crypto DAO governance culture, whereas Yearn emerged from the DeFi culture, which is, another part of the crypto journey. So Livepeer will have its own decentralization journey. Livepeer will likely arrive at a DAO at its own pace, but with this panel, we'll get a sense for some of the ways DAOs are manifesting in those contexts. So with that, Chris, Sky, who are you? How did you guys join a DAO? Maybe, Chris, do you want to start?
Sure. Hey, everybody. So my journey to DAO land, as it were, I think in hindsight, it was the logical evolution of my corporate career. So I had in a what now feels like a previous life, like a relatively traditionally successful corporate career. I worked at some big name companies. It was at Facebook for a bit, Netflix for a bit. Unfortunately, did not sell my Netflix stock. If you happen to see their performance, it looked like crypto. The last 24 hours, it tanked like 26%. But anyways, but worked for big companies, had built big teams, had cool titles in a corner office and all that shit. And I always found myself just frustrated with traditional hierarchical corporate cultures, spending so much time managing up, and I found myself, relating more, bonding more with the rank and file employee, if you were, and realizing the real value of work over executives. And so in 2016, 2017, when I started hearing about crypto, and it was really a lot of Ethereum learning that kind of pulled me into this space, I just found myself, I was working at Facebook at the time, believe it or not, I just found myself really, really pulled to what was going on in crypto and understanding decentralized systems. And I got into it learning from a technical perspective, and then really into decentralized organizations and thinking about different ways of organizing. And so I started contributing to DAOs first in 2017, and had kind of been, I guess, back and forth, or at sort of varying levels of going deep and being more shallow in DAOs and crypto since that time. But in late 20, I lose track of the years, in late 2020, started getting to know folks at Yearn. There's a guy who goes by Tracheopteryx, who's one of the Yearn OGs. We have some friends in common, some IRL friends in common, and just got to chatting about how, not about DeFi really, but about how organizations should work, can work, how things can be different than the way they are in the corporate world, and really bonded over those things, and kind of, as often happens in crypto and in DAOs, started with meeting and chatting with people, went to working on a project, took a grant to do some research, and got pulled in more and more until I kind of jumped in as my primary gig about a year ago. And here we are. I have no title, I have no office, and I'm the happiest that I've been in a long time.
Yay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sky. Probably have a kind of a similar journey. Originally was in finance and moved into tech, and then found crypto in 2017, really, and very quickly realized, probably in 2018, actually in the heart of the bear market, that there wasn't a lot to do for people that weren't really developers, but there were a bunch of DAOs and things like Metacartel and a few other DAOs were spinning up to basically organize, and you saw that there was no boss, and it seemed really interesting, and you had heard about some other systems that were DAO-like, but that's when DAOs started like actually doing things, and you realized that you didn't need anyone's permission to get hired. You could just join these communities and you could start contributing, and some were to buy your way into them, like some grants DAOs, others where you could just start contributing. And so very early on, I think I realized that is likely the future of work. And if we are working in this, building this decentralized version of the world, of the internet of products, DAOs are going to be a big part of that. And so the main DAO that I contribute to now is DXDAO, but also part of a bunch of other DAOs and communities. And the way DXDAO was founded, and so Gnosis and DAOstack got together. DAOstack is a DAO framework, and Gnosis was building products in the DeFi space, in the prediction market space, and they very early on realized that you can't have decentralized products or decentralized systems if at the end of the day they are controlled by a centralized company, a centralized team, or something that's centralized. So they got together and they created they helped create and birth this idea of DXDAO, and they had a mechanism to do that. But on day one, they created this DAO, and it had about 430 people that had voting power in this DAO, but it didn't do anything. It was just a DAO. And so I think we're Yearn and DXDAO are on the extreme end of DAOs, because they were very distributed and decentralized from the start, using two different mechanisms. And so we haven't had to have the journey of moving from a centralized team building a company to basically figure out how to decentralize. Both of our communities started pretty decentralized, and so we've been learning how to build and succeed in that form. But we can get more into it. But the cool thing is, I already see Livepeer here, and I've been following it from the side for a few years now, and there is this decentralized community of people. It just might not have some of the governance mechanisms and things yet, but versus like many projects are just like a small team of a few people that have a product and they want to become a DAO. This is already a kind of a spread out community, which is cool to see.
Awesome. Yeah, Chris, maybe dig into Yearn's arc from the origin story. I mean, it actually did, like, what is Yearn? Like, how did Yearn start? And then how did kind of decentralized governance come into play there? I mean, it's one of the like most storied DeFi projects because it did come out of the head of one individual, and now you've got 500,000 followers on Twitter. So how did it start?
Yeah, and if anybody wants to tweet anything from Yearn Maine, I have it in my pocket. So let's go. Let's think of some cool shit and just put it out there. All right. See if we can get Banteg worked up. Although for all you know, I am Banteg. I'm not. So Uh, they say that you fall in love slowly and then all at once, right? And um, in Yearn, we decentralized or fell in love all at once and then slowly. To Sky's point, it was very decentralized from the beginning, but then we've been iterating on it ever since and figuring out how the heck to do this. We don't have it figured out by any stretch, but we're learning and sharing as we go. So Yearn, and this is a big part of why I've chosen to focus, a big chunk of my time on Yearn. Yearn is operating in the DeFi space, but is so much more. I think Yearn is about the organization, which is this completely decentralized group of people. It varies even month to month in numbers, but anywhere from 150 to 200 plus people working on this thing. And today the primary thing that we're working on is a DeFi protocol, right? Is a set of vaults where people can be either individuals or increasingly other platforms, wallets, etc. Can bring their holdings, lock their holdings, and then we have automation that goes out and hunts for the best yield, and auto compounds it, and all that good stuff, which is an important part of DeFi. It brings a lot of value. It drives a lot of revenue, a lot of profit, and it's just one thing. Quick plug, but I think honestly, if you haven't seen it, I think it would be helpful in thinking about decentralized organizations. But we put a book out, digital book, although we're going to do a hardcover, some alpha here. We'll do a hardcover book later this year, but called The Blue Pill. And The Blue Pill was authored by a bunch of anonymous folks within Yearn, and we'll talk about anonymity later, right? But sort of highlights what Yearn is and how we're organized, and it says very little about DeFi, and it has this line at the end that says, all that matters is that we sail, which is really what it's about. And I definitely think, I was on a call last night about a potential Yearn project that has nothing to do with DeFi, and I think that's kind of cool. So sorry, a bit of an aside, but I think worth naming, because it's inspiring to me to hear that even though maybe you guys don't have a DAO going today, you've already got a decentralized group of folks working on something, which for me is a big chunk of the battle. Right, a lot of the time we spend today is helping folks adjust, recover from Web 2, adjust to decentralized thinking. But if you've already got people that are living and breathing that, a lot of people like that, then that's a great center of gravity. So to your question, Shannon, sorry. Hopefully that's helpful stuff. But so Yearn started in the brain of one man, one controversial man named Andre Cronje, who, even though, a personal example. So I've worked on Yearn now since late 2020, right? So going on a year and a half, and I've interacted with Andre maybe like 5 times, okay? And yet he created this thing that has driven so much value, that has pulled together these dozens of people working on this thing. And the reason that he's been able to have that impact without having, he hasn't touched it directly in quite some time, is because he gave it all away. He started himself creating what was V1 of Yearn, going out with that same goal of doing the work for you and finding the best yields and harvesting and auto compounding and all that good stuff. And in the beginning of what became DeFi Summer in 2020, gave it all away. Created the YFI token, a true fair launch, which I understand from Shannon you guys can relate to fair launch, which is amazing. But literally every single token was given away. First to folks who were bringing liquidity to the platform, so in Curve and otherwise. Actually bringing liquidity could earn it that way, and then increasingly giving it away to folks that were involved in other ways, including governance, right? So staked governance could then earn some rewards, and there's sort of been this arc, in some ways ever since, of the more that you're involved in Yearn, then the more opportunities you have to earn. And so last piece on that, but there's so much that we can get into there. But that happened middle of 2020, so going on 2 years ago, and we're very much still now, and I think we'll be in well into the future, iterating on what that looks like, iterating on the tokenomics of Wi-Fi. We have some big changes to those that very publicly were derived and debated, and it'll go into we'll go live in a couple of months, and continue to iterate on how the organization is built and how we incorporate the token, but also governance into the way that all of this stuff operates. So sorry, that was a bit of word salad. There's so much to talk about in this area, but hopefully helpful.
Yeah, maybe let's dig into actually what decision making looks like in your DAOs. Like, governance is people making decisions and figuring out how to organize themselves. Thinking about DAOs, like the problem that a lot of people think about is like voter fatigue, having to decide on everything, like just coordination paralysis. Like, if I want to throw an event at DXDAO, like, and it cost me $5,000, does like the entire DAO need to vote on that $5,000? Just explain like what the process is.
Yeah, that's a good example we can go into. In general, as Chris mentioned, like with these decentralized communities, we spend, even though we have these products like the vaults, or we have a swappers in AMM, or Omens and prediction market, we spend a lot of time also figuring out how to do decentralized governance, because there's no playbook for how to do it. So all these communities are doing it their own ways and spending a lot of time, money, and resources also figuring that out, which is all very experimental, which is super cool. And then you can borrow things you see from other communities and bring that into yours. In general, like if it's a big important proposal, which DXDAO does true on-chain governance, so most things pass through the process of on-chain proposal systems. If it's a big part of these communities is delegation. So a DAO can make decisions to delegate certain powers, certain amount of funds to smaller groups within that community. One of the important things is that the DAO has the ability to take that delegation away again. And so we do things like actual proposals that move money, that do investments, that do sponsorships, that do real things. And then we also do signal proposals. And signal proposals are just as important and powerful as proposals that move money. If the DAO does a vote that is a signal proposal and says, over the next 3 months, we have this plan to do this, the people that are part of this community actually truly believe that it's then their job, even if it's not something that you voted to support. If the DAO said that, it's then the community and the workers and the contributors' job to basically execute that say until there's another proposal that says that, do something different. So we, DXDAO, for example, the last 2 days was the DAOist, which is an event. It's a DAO focused event. This is the third iteration. There was one in Lisbon. There's one in Paris as well. It's an event that DXDAO has been supporting from the start. It's DAO focused. And so, when we sponsor that, we actually do an on-chain proposal that the DAO, that all rep holders, so DXDAO uses non-transferable governance power. So reputation is what you earn as governance power, and is what you vote with. You can't buy and sell it. So it's quite different and unique than a lot of other projects out there that use a liquid token for governance. But the rep holders vote on that. The money actually moves directly from DXDAO's treasury into the, in this case, multi-sig of the DAOist. And that is the actual on-chain agreement to support this event, to do the sponsorship, and actually move the money all kind of embedded into one. But that's like a specific example, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
And I love the reputation dynamic and non-transferable. I think those kinds of, I think we'll see more people learning from things like you guys are doing there, and finding ways to do that kind of stuff on chains. I think that's awesome. I think it sounds similar, but when you think about decision making, I saw this exchange on Twitter between it was Brian Chesky, who's the CEO of Airbnb, and then I think it was Aaron Levy, but Chesky's the one I'm going to attack here. It reminded me of like the Blockbuster guys dismissing the idea. It's my second Netflix comment of the panel, Netflix on the brain. But when Netflix was coming up, right, Blockbuster just kind of laughed like no one's going to do that. And Brian Chesky in this Twitter thread was like, let's just have every single decision our organization makes go out for a vote by the token holders, right? And we're going to go buy a pack of gum. We'll go do that. And it's like, no, bro, like you don't get it. Nobody's doing that. Or if they are, they're learning as they're going and iterating from that. But it just kind of made me think about how even disruptors like that, right? Like Airbnb is a great disruption story, but bro has no idea what's coming, I guess. But so the way we handle like day-to-day decision making at Yearn is there's basically trust circles. So the more you contribute, or that you're vouched for. Thank you, brother. This is like DAO to DAO love. This guy's got my back. We did that seamlessly. So thanks, man. So day-to-day decision making, the more you're active and known, the more trusted you are. So the pinnacle of trust today within Yearn is doers, which is another name for like core team. So there's 40 or so of us that are within that group. And so if you are a doer, you can go spend up to $10,000 of treasury on whatever you think makes sense for Yearn, is good for Yearn. But you need to, ideally before you're doing it, but certainly as you're doing it, write up and share with doers, hey, I approved this expense for this reason, for this goal. Here's why it matters, right? But you're empowered to just go do that, right? If I want to go to an event that I think makes sense, if I want to, contract a researcher to do something that I think fits in with a project and it's within that budget range, like just go do it. And then there is a conflict resolution process. If it comes to question, like, hey, you're not making smart decisions, or these things aren't, you're not measuring impact on these things, whatever the exception to that might be, then cool, then work that through. But the opportunity far outweighs the risk of empowering people, that many people to go get things done. And then even for bigger than that, but not $1 million expenses, but for that sort of middle range, and we have a team called Y Budget, and Y Budget is a group that's empowered to curate the operating budget of Yearn, and then you just need to get enough signers in there to agree if you want to spend more than that. So there's some process to it. There's no like fixed template for requests. We try to be a little bit more flexible than that, depending on the situation. But same idea. You write up what you're doing, how it's going to have impact, how you'll know, success measures, and get it done. But in some cases, those things can be approved within hours and keep you going. And then the bigger things go out to the whole community for governance, right? Just like the whole budget itself went out to community for governance. It's so hopefully a helpful example of this latter, but it keeps us so we're accountable for what we're doing, but we're not like slowed in governance over every little thing, which I think is more of a meme than an actual reality of any projects that are operating at a real quote unquote business.
Awesome, thank you.
Just to build on that, the cool thing is so DAOs are not trustless and are not autonomous really, and you just mentioned like he's building trust within the community. People are earning reputation and building trust, and then they have more power they're given more delegation to make decisions on their own. And most people, they're like, oh no, this is supposed to be trustless, I don't have to trust anyone. The cool thing is the blockchain technology and the DAO mechanisms allow random people on the internet to start an idea, contribute money, and start making decisions in a fully trustless way. And in the case of like a Moloch DAO, for example, you can put money in, and if something bad is happening that you don't like, you can just take your money back out and you can leave. So that mechanism allows you to like experiment and take risk in a trustless way without having to rely on a bank or a big central counterparty. And then as the community starts to get to know each other, you then don't have to trust certain people, or you start to trust people, so you don't need this mechanism. But at all times, you have the mechanism there, which is the underlying important thing that can then take the power or solve the, if there's an issue, you can use the technology to solve the problem, basically.
Cool.
Which is super powerful, yeah.
Yeah, I want to tap into that idea of how trust is earned between humans who are often anonymous, because, that's like, as you just mentioned, permissionlessness, anonymity, those are like core cultural primitives for Web3 and for crypto. So how, and I'd like, for you to both kind of talk about how trust is earned, acknowledged, and rewarded when it comes to getting work done, right? Because I think that's the other big feature of DAOs. It's like a decentralization of how work happens and is coordinated. So.
Yeah. So what's really unique for, as I mentioned, for the DXDAO scenario from day one, and there are plans to maybe evolve this, and you hear Vitalik talk about negative things about liquid token governance all the time, and there has to be other ways, and he talks about other things. So DXDAO is one of the prime examples of something that's not liquid token governance. So I would say that reputation, which is it's this number unit, it's like a token, but you can't buy and sell it, and that's the governance power in DXDAO. You could argue that that is trust, right? And so the only way you can get reputation in DXDAO currently is to contribute value to DXDAO, show the community that you contribute this value, do a proposal, and earn reputation, which is this earning this governance unit. And so it is actually like a unit of contribution, which is theoretically trust as well, and proven contribution on chain to a community of value. And that's something that as you build that, once it's on chain, anyone in the world can see this. So you can basically, you're starting to build your Web3 resume, and maybe that includes your POAPs, that you've been to certain events, and maybe that includes all the votes you've done in different DAOs, and the DAO has the ability to slash it. So if you ever do something malicious, the DAO can take that reputation, that governance power away from an individual as well. And so that, I would say that reputation unit is also trust, yeah. But we have anonymous contributors who have earned this as well, and you're still trusting them, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So most people who contribute to Yearn do so anonymously, which I understand from Shannon that there are a bunch of anons in this community as well. So it sounds like you guys get it, but it does make for an interesting sort of challenge. But in some ways, it's sort of and this is part of what I think is really promising about anonymity. It also takes some of the politics and BS out of. Getting people involved in your project. Like Sky said, anybody can come contribute to these things, right? And so at Yearn, anybody can come and contribute, right? You can just show up. You can submit a pull request or write an article, or come into the forums and start helping out, whatever you're doing, right? But as you sort of graduate up in trust circles, the first tier, I guess, there can be one-off compensation for one-off contributions, right? Bounties and one-off grants and these kinds of things that are important. And then for more regular contribution, then we use a tool called Coordinape, which we could spend a whole session on, but is a tool actually that was incubated within Yearn and then spun out last year and is used by a number of DAOs for compensation. But we very much still use it internally for what we call casual contributors, and oftentimes their contributions are anything but casual. But these are people that might come in, a few hours a month, or a little bit every day. They might come and go for a month at a time. But anyways, to get into that circle and to be able to receive compensation that actually is determined by your peers, you have to get vouched in. So there's a vouching feature within Coordinape. You have to get somebody who's already within the circle to nominate you, and then you have to get 3 more people, or maybe it's a total of 3. You have to get people to vouch for you, right? So staking their reputation not monetarily, but but in a place where trust is everything, against you and the work that you've already done, right? So it's not just, hey, this person seems cool and they're going to help with stuff. It's like, hey, this person is known and has shown up, has been doing valuable stuff, and is vouched in. So there's sort of this vouching system that comes in, and I think it sets the stage for, although it's not as on chain as what these guys have going on. It does set a stage that helps us understand reputation, right? You've been vouched in. We know who vouched you in. As folks contribute more and more, and we look to consider them for bigger projects, or they pitch other things that they want to get funding for. We'll look at, how many coordinate circles have they done? How much have they been allocated, and from whom? So you get a real idea of the signal, all with real data of how this person's been impacting the DAO.
Very cool. Awesome. We have 7 minutes left, I think. Lots of questions. Paige.
I am sort of a DAO newbie, and so I'm very curious what how compensation works. Like, what's the primary motivator for contributors for a DAO, and is it always in your token that they get compensated for?
Yeah. So earlier days, and this can be all DAOs, when I started contributing to DAOs, I just wanted to have say in the DAO. Like, I didn't really care about money. I just wanted governance power in the DAO because I wanted to be able to affect what the DAO was doing. Nowadays, it's pretty sophisticated. Like, I think Yearn has, a lot of DAOs have like a people ops person. We have Melanie, who, I'm not sure if she's here, is our contributor experience squad leader. She is basically getting to define what HR/people ops/contribute experience means at a decentralized collective that exists on the internet. Like, no one has defined what this means, and she, along with our squad, she also, the DAOist she talks to other people that do that same role at other DAOs as well, and they're defining this basically for the world, like, going forward, which is super cool. And that's like almost every position at a DAO, whether it's like DAO, we're hiring a DAO counsel right now. Like, what's that? It's like a lawyer. There's actually a bunch of lawyers at Yearn, but like, we want a lawyer who wants to like work for a DAO and define what being head counsel at a DAO means, whatever that exists on the internet in no country, right? So we've created over time to make this easier, so someone can look at a DAO and say, how do I contribute? We have like trial periods, we have guidelines, we have ways to figure out your level kind of based on your experience, and then you can figure out how you want to contribute, like from a time and percentage of like total full-time contributor to like, I only can contribute 1 day a week, but you have guidelines that you can look at and fit in what you want to work on, because no one tells you what to do ever, right? You need to decide what you want to contribute. The DAO will decide, is that good for the DAO? Yes, we want you to do that, but that's the DAO's decision. And then you basically kind of fit it into what these guidelines are. Otherwise, you'd be like randomly picking numbers out of thin air, being like, I'll do this, but I want this. And that's like, well, look at the precedents of what people have done in the past. So you could look at everyone's past proposals and figure it that way, or you just create the guidelines to help people fit into that. But that's compensation, and often, so it's not uncommon to get paid in dollar crypto. We have a native financial token, DXD, which is now will be like vesting over 3 years. And so you have, as you contribute, you get alignment there, and then you also earn the reputation, which is the governance power. And there's certain bits, and so that slowly inflates over time. And so as more contributors contribute, people that have this governance power that aren't doing anything or haven't in like a year, they're slowly getting kind of diluted or inflated away, and then new contributors who are contributing value more recently get governance power. And so it's like this natural movement of governance to those who care more, I think, or are more, could be more effective today.
Quick follow on. So I gave a talk yesterday at the Daoist event, which I think they're going to share streaming. If not, I can at least get you the presentation through Shannon. But on compensation at Yearn, so check it out. It breaks down a lot of this stuff. But one quick thing I would and I think it maybe sounds similar too, but for Sky. So at Yearn, the more your compensation looks like a recurring grant or something that looks more like a salary, those are all paid in stables. But for the the more casual contributor for coordinate circles, it's paid in Wi-Fi, paid in our token, and paid over. I forget it. We shifted to either Phantom or Arbitrum, but shifted somewhere where folks who are even receiving small amounts can where it still can make sense for them to go access those tokens. But definitely for folks, for stability's sake, for everybody involved, like recurring grants become stables.
Before, because we're almost out of time, there's one thing that I did want to say that we were talking about yesterday is, as Livepeer system is complicated. There's a lot of different parts of it. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's the users, the consumers, the orchestrators, the team that's building it, like the people that hold the token. In my mind, as you DAOify, as you become more decentralized, the most important thing is to get governance power, whatever that is, in the hands of the people, of all the stakeholders that you think would in the long run benefit being the governors of this system. And now whether they're incentivized to govern it, but that distribution is the hardest. Livepeer system is complicated. There's a lot of different parts of it. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's the users, the consumers, the orchestrators, the team that's building it, like the people that hold the token. In my mind, as you DAOify, as you become more decentralized, the most important thing is to get governance power, whatever that is, in the hands of the people, of all the stakeholders that you think would in the long run benefit being the governors of this system. And now whether they're incentivized to govern it, but that distribution is the hardest thing to figure out. And if you spend a lot of time on it, but if you can do it and you have all these stakeholders and you have this like solid core community, you just have to figure out what mechanisms to use to get that governance power in those hands, and what kind of governance power it is and things like that. But that's really the most important thing for all communities and products that want to become more decentralized and distributed, I think.
Ooh, that's awesome. That great insight. Thank you. We are at time. There's so much more we could talk about here. We didn't get into how the worlds of Web3 infrastructure and DeFi can collide. We're still in different camps in Web3. There's lots more that you've given us, food for thought on. Hopefully you can stick around for the rest of the day, or we'll have lunch shortly. And please follow up with Chris and Sky if you have questions. And we'll have another session in the afternoon. I think at 2:40, we're going to have a breakout workshop where we can jam on what can the community do to further decentralize. What are some challenges, opportunities to increase community participation in Livepeer? So please join us for that. I want to thank Sky and Chris so much for sharing your world of DAOs with the Livepeer community. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.